Okay, guys, here are the calculator strokes. And sorry, I'm having to hold the camera up so you guys can see it, so it might be a little bit wiggly, but it's the best I can do. So, the calculator steps for doing residuals on your calculator. So, the very first thing we did was we went to Stat, Edit, and we entered our lists in so that we had all of our X values, and this is from your notes, so they should be the same. All of our X values in list 1 and all of our Y values in L2. Okay. Your L3 and L4, clear those out so you guys can see. So one of the things we did was we found our prediction equation. And if you guys don't remember how to do that, just look at the other video that I did previously. That shows you how to find your prediction equation. Okay. So to find residuals, we have to have the actual value that we observed minus the predicted. So from our notes, if you guys are following along with our note packet, our actual were all of those weights of bears that we actually observed in the habitat. Okay, so that's these ones over here, the 54 pounds, 58 pounds, and so on that we entered into list 2. So for list 3, we need our predicted values. So our predicted values we get using our prediction equation. And rather than go through and enter each of our x values to get our predicted value out, we're going to let the calculator do that for us. So we go up with our arrows so that L3 is highlighted. So see, my L3 is black. If it's not highlighted, it looks like that. So arrow up so it's highlighted. And then we're going to put our prediction equation in. But instead of x, we're going to use the list that we put our x values into. And for me, and what we did in class, was we put our x values in list 1. So our equation when we did our prediction equation was y equals 1.272x plus 40.515. So after I have L3 highlighted, I'm going to do 1.272, and I'm going to move this up just a little bit so you guys can see the whole calculator here. And again, sorry, I'm holding it up so that you guys can see the whole thing. And instead of x, I'm going to put in the list. And the list that I have my x values in are L1. So I'm going to do second 1 plus the 40.515. And when I hit enter, you guys can see here, this list populated with all of my predicted y values. Okay. So I now have my actually observed y values, and I have what would be predicted if I used my prediction equation. So now let's go ahead and find your residuals. Your residuals, they are the actual minus the predicted. So I go back up to L4 and I make sure that that is highlighted. And then I say, okay, I want the actual, which is L2. So I'm going to do, move my calculator up. Second 2 minus my predicted, which were in L3, so second 3, and then I hit enter. And you guys will notice that my L4 here, those are my residuals. Okay, so those are those vertical distances from the data point to the actual prediction line. Okay, so last but not least, we need to graph. Now, one of the things I have you guys do when you do your prediction equation is store an equation, so that when you graph it, it puts the line up there. We don't want the line to graph when we do a residual plot. So the very first thing we need to do is go up here, and if you have anything in here, you need to erase it. So you would hit clear. Okay, so now let's go ahead and graph our residuals. So we're going to go second y equals. We want all of these to be off except for plot 1, because that's the one we're going to do. So we are going to go ahead and look at this screen. If this was off, it would look like that. So you want to make sure you go over to on and hit enter. This is the scatter plot, and a residual does use the scatter plot. Okay, so make sure that one's highlighted. Again, if it's not, you just have to arrow over to whatever you need and hit enter. Okay, X list. When we do a residual plot, our X's are still our X's, and we put those in list 1, so that should still be list 1. Our Y's, however, are going to be our residuals, and you guys just found residuals on your list 4. So If this doesn't say list 4, the way you change it is second 4, and that'll put L4 in there. Okay, and then the last thing we need to do is graph our residuals. So we come up here to the right and we hit graph. If it does something funky, the fix is zoom 9. Okay, so if the questions that I will ask you about residuals, there's really only one. Is the linear model appropriate for this data? And the answer on this question is yes, because there are two criteria that we look at with a residual plot. The first criteria is that there is no pattern. It's not curved, it's not going up in a line, there's nothing going on here, there's no pattern. So that's a good thing with residual plots. The second thing is that we have about the same number of dots above the line as we do below the line, and I'm talking about this x equaling 0 line right here. Okay, so I'm sorry, my residual equaling 0 line right here. Okay, so we have about the same here as we do here, so we would say those two criteria, this would be a good model to be using a line. So this would be a linear model and it would be appropriate. Okay, that's all I have as far as the calculator and residuals, and that's what we did in class today. Other than that, we will do more next week.